A man was driving down the street, and he had a convertible, and he had dozens of penguins in the back and front seat. And he was driving in the middle of town, and he stopped for a red light, and an officer came over and said, "Sir, you can't drive around with those animals like this. Take those penguins to the zoo." Well, the man drove off, and the next day, same guy came back, still with a load of penguins. And the officer, same officer, he said, "I thought I told you to take those penguins to the zoo." He says, "I did, and today I'm taking them to the circus." Things are not always the way they seem, and we see things differently because of our perspective. There was a fellow named Sam who got his paycheck or his pay envelope, and they put $5 extra in it. Well, he didn't say a word. And the next week, he got his paycheck, and the paymaster had caught the error, and he took $5 out. And Sam was so angry, he walked up to the paymaster and said, "Why did you do this? You've made a mistake here. You took $5 out." The paymaster said, "Well, you didn't complain last week when I made a mistake and put $5 extra in." He says, "Yeah, one mistake is fine, but two, that's just too many." It is all part of our perspective. We see things the way we want to see them. We see them and we think things are a certain way because of the way we're actually seeing them. Here's a little letter, a Dear John letter, what other kind would we get? But just read that nice letter. Isn't that nice? I mean, don't you feel Belinda really has to be a lovely person? But read the PS. We're all thinking in a direction that has more to do with what we have learned. And yet all of us want to be happy. That is something that's universal. We want to be happy. And we want to look like this, but a lot of our life looks like that. And I want to give you the key to an unhappy life. Would you want to know how to really have a totally, completely unhappy life? If you want the key to increasing your lack and limitation and poverty, if you want to know how to have bad relationships, and you want to have poor health, here is the secret that you need to know. Here's the key to the most miserable life in the world: resentment. It literally kills everything. And yet we have a lot of resentments for things that have happened to us in the past. Sometimes the things that happened to us so long ago that the people who aren't even on the planet who did them, and yet we still carry that resentment. The word resent comes from the Old French, and it means to re-feel, to feel again. So when someone does something to you one time and you feel bad about it, don't you think that's enough punishment? Or would you like to do it again and again and tell everybody your story so you can feel that sense of resentment one more time? So let's talk about healing resentment. And we're going to use the SID formula. Now, all of you probably remember Sid Caesar. Some of you are old enough to remember Sid Caesar. We're going to use the SID formula, but I had to kind of change it a little bit. Instead of the SID, we're going to change it to the CID, the SID formula, to work on resentment. Here we have resent, the word resent. That's our original. And we're going to go for conscious intervention daily, CID, and change resent to rescind our resentment. So you can resent or you can rescind. Those are your choices. When you've got something you're thinking about from the past, you can either hang on to that and rescind it again and again and again, or you can rescind it, cut it off. So we're going to say some affirmations together. Let's do this one first. It is, I rescind my resentments. Would you say that together?
I rescind all my resentments.
Okay. And this one, I turn over all my resentments to God. Would you say that?
I turn over all my resentments to God.
And then this one. So literally, we want to get over it. These are some names of some companies that have had some problems in the past. These are companies you've heard of, like these are companies that went bankrupt at least one time. Birdseye, Borden's, Aunt Jemima, Quaker Oats 3 times, Pepsi-Cola 3 times, Wrigley's 3 times. They went broke, completely broke, and started up again. Henry Ford failed 5 times before he finally became successful. And people who have failed again and again and again are part of life itself, part of what we're doing. These are companies that really were going good and failed and then came back and sometimes failed again and again. So failure is just a path to success if you let it be. Here's a guy. He was told by his high school yearbook staff that his cartoons were not good enough for the yearbook. Who's he? Charles Schultz. That was one of his characters. We know him. Guess who was cut from his high school basketball team in Wilmington, North Carolina? Michael Jordan. He was 4F, classified that way because he couldn't see, but he could see well enough to take this photograph. He was turned down 18 times by his publisher because he wrote a little book about a seagull. 18 times turned down. Richard Bach, John Philip Seagull. These were people who didn't give up. These were people who did not resent. Here's a guy that flunked the first grade. Wow. Here's another guy who flunked the second grade. He became a unity minister. We never give up. So if it happened, get over it. We have a minister friend who says, so your mother locked you in the glove compartment of your car when you were a baby. You're out. Get over it. What is the meaning of life? Anybody ever ask that question? What is the meaning of life? Or what is the meaning of this? Well, I came into my boys' room today, and it was a mess. They had toys strewn all over the place, and they were having this great time. And I walked and I said, what's the meaning of this? And both of them looked at me with this blank stare. Meaning? What do you mean, meaning? Well, there was no meaning in this. They were just having fun. They were just doing what they wanted to do. They were enjoying themselves. There was no meaning whatsoever. Viktor Frankl wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. I don't know if you read it. It's a great book, although it's a little bit difficult in a way. He was in the concentration camps in the Second World War. And the conditions that he describes are so horrendous that it would be just hard to believe. But there's one scene in the book that I just love where he and his friend are going by this soup line. They got to eat once a day, watered down soup, and occasionally there'd be a vegetable or something in the soup. And they would say to the guy that was dishing out the soup, dig deep, because that would mean maybe he would get a few vegetables. And as they're going down the line, asking him to dig deep, one turns to the other and says, now when we're out of this, do you think every time we have soup we're going to ask, dig deep? I mean, in these horrible conditions where when a person died, they went and stole his shoelaces because those were critical. They didn't have shoelaces to keep the shoes on their feet. And it was freezing cold. He went through this horrible thing, but he survived. And he said that the people who gave up, he could see the look on their face when they gave up. He knew they would be dead in a week. And he could tell by the look in the eyes who was going to live and who was not. And it was all about their attitude and what they were thinking, no matter how bad the conditions were. We're dealing with a problem of meaning. And does anybody know the meaning of this word? Would you please tell me? What's this word? What is it? Read? Did anybody say another word? Read? Oh, which one of these did you mean? We're dealing with a language that really doesn't have much of a meaning. Would anybody care to give me the definition of this word? 3 letters. You had a hard time with the 4-letter word, so let's try the 3-letter word. What does it mean? What does run mean? To move your legs fast. Okay, what else? A tear in a stocking. What do you know? That's a run and it doesn't even run, does it? It's already run. What else? Politicians do. They run for office. Sitting What? Okay, a color to bleed, right, to run. Do you know how many different definitions of the word run there are? Look it up. 90. 90 definitions. And so we're speaking a language that doesn't make any sense and doesn't have much meaning except for the meaning that we assigned to it. You see, life, this is a shocker, life has no meaning. I want to say that again. Life intrinsically has no meaning. Viktor Frankl's book, A Man's Search for Meaning, was a great title, but there is no meaning out there. You can search forever, and people search for the meaning of things. There's no meaning in life. Life provides us with no meaning whatsoever. Yet all the people who I've known personally or who I've read about who have wonderful lives all have it with meaning. A life without meaning is meaningless. And that gives us a paradox. If life doesn't have any meaning and a life without meaning is meaningless, how can we explain that? The explanation is basically this. Only you can bring meaning to your life. You put the meanings on everything. There is nothing that means something universally because some people think it means just the opposite. If I say to you, point to the right, I point to the right, what are you doing? You're pointing to the opposite direction because you're coming from a different point of view. Meaning is assigned by us. Take a look at that. What do you see? Flowers? A woman? Both? We are making this up, folks. Take a look at this. You say, well, I know what that means. That means no. Well, if you put it in that framework, yes, that's what it means. But what if you expanded the frame to see what else there was there? What if it's really that? And that's the way it is with everything. If we are willing to expand our framework, we can see far more in everything that's out there. The thing that's important to understand about meaning is that we always think of meaning being in the content of something. But it's just as important to understand that a context is just as important as the content. If we take something like a patriot, we say, oh yeah, he's a patriot, I'm a patriot, everybody's a patriot. In a context, we are patriots. But what if you put that in the context of German stormtroopers? Are they patriots? Well, they thought they were. And the other people in Germany thought they were. The difference between a hero and a war criminal is who won the war. So what is it? What is a hero? You are a patriot, right? And when were we the most patriotic? We were the most patriotic on July 4th, right? How patriotic are you on April 15th? Changes. Patriot is the content, and April 15th is the context, and July 4th is the context. So when you're looking at things and trying to determine meaning and trying to put meaning, look not only at the content, but look also at the context. Now, resentment creates literal barriers between what we personally want and what we don't want. There's two ways to be. One is joyful and happy, and the other is to be resentful about anything. I think probably you might remember something that looks like this from your science class in high school. That's a little knife switch in there, and there's a little 6-volt battery, and there's a nail with wires running around it, and you know that creates a magnet, and it points at things. And we'll say that battery is the universal power supply, and when that is hooked together and it's pointing in the right direction, we create joy in our life. When our battery is hooked up in the right direction, the current is flowing in the right direction, we create the things that we want. They actually are created in our universe, and they're drawn to us. If, however, we put resistance in there through resentment, that changes the flow, and we get what we don't want. Most people who want more money are not thinking about more money. They're thinking about the lack of the money they have right now. And as long as you're doing that, you're not going to create more money or anything else. So when that circuit's open, you reverse it, and you get what you're looking for instead of the opposite of it, the desired thing or circumstance. And how do you do that? And that's what we're really here about today. It's the art called pivoting. Pivoting is changing the way you think at the precise moment that you're having a negative thought. So you're having these thoughts, and how do you know when you're having a negative thought? The best guide is your feelings, how you feel. If it feels bad, you are thinking the wrong thing. Now you may say, well, wait a minute. Somebody did something bad to me, and I have to chew them out. Does it feel good to chew them out? It makes you feel more and more angry. And they resist, and that makes you feel even more angry. So what you're doing is you're working in the opposite direction, and your alarm system needs to go off and say, what I'm thinking is the wrong direction. I'm thinking about what's wrong and not what I want. And the art of being able to switch that and to move that to something else is called by some the art of allowing. So if we can change this mood, if we can let the actual being upset or angry or hurt or any other feeling that you want that's negative, if we can use that as our clue to say, oops, I'm thinking in the wrong direction. We can change the thought, and we do that through this art we call pivoting. Here are the steps basically to pivot. One is called freeze framing. How many do you remember, was it Elizabeth Montgomery that had Bewitched? Remember that program? One of the things that she did, which I thought was kind of neat, one of her little witch tricks was she could just get everything to stop. All the people in the scene would just stop, just like wherever they were, hanging in midair. That's called freeze framing. You can do that with your thoughts. You can say to your thoughts, stop, just like that, and hold it. Hold the thought right. Don't let it progress forward. Don't let it go back. Just hold it. There it is. I'm angry. I'm upset. And once you can hold and freeze the thought, which you can do, and you only have to freeze it for a second or two, then you observe the thought and the feeling. You step back from this frame and say, what's our favorite word to say? Isn't that interesting? That person did so-and-so. The other person's over there is angry too. Gee, and I started to get angry also. Wasn't that interesting? You're looking at the scene. You're looking at this freeze frame scene and deciding to make a decision outside of it, not from within. If you're inside of it, the ego has all the power to control you. We talked about the last lesson about ego. The ego has that power to control you because it's got hold of your thinking. And when you freeze frame and step out, it no longer has power. And it's just amazing what happens next. It literally dissipates, and you refocus and you decide, I don't want to think about this. I want to think about something else. I don't even want to think about a solution for this right now because I know that the solution is there, even though I don't know it right this minute. I know the solution is there, but I'm going to choose to think about something else, anything else. It doesn't even have to be about this subject. It could be. You could move just slightly to a slightly better thought. Well, this too shall pass. Anything that you can say that will get you to move a little bit more towards that positive direction. Pivoting is the act of taking your attention away from what is happening outside and focusing your attention on what's happening inside you in order to observe the feelings and thoughts so that you can refocus on new, more positive, or what might be called better feeling thoughts. That's the art of pivoting. That is the way you change your life, by being willing to stop right in the middle of being upset, angry, hurt, someone cut you off, whatever it is, and going to this idea of, okay, let me freeze it, let me look at it, let me find a good thought in it or a good thought out of it, but anything to change the way I'm thinking right now. You see, you can only come from one or another of two directions. You can come from fear, or you can come from love. Love is always peaceful, it's kind, it makes you feel good, and fear always makes you feel bad. And we've learned to fear literally everything. We've learned to even say it, I'm afraid I can't come to your party tonight. Why are you afraid? What might they do at that party? We've just ingrained in our language. So pivoting is changing. It is spiraling. It's almost like a dance that we do. It is changing the direction of our thought. And we're doing this under our own control. We are not trying to control the circumstances. Forget it. We are trying to control the way we think and the way we feel. That's the only control. That's the only steering mechanism that you need for your whole life. If you have actually pivoted, how will you know it's done? Well, here's a couple of clues. You feel better. The minute you start to pivot and take just a slightly better thought, that anger, that upset just seeps down and you begin to feel a little bit better. That is the sign, yes, I have pivoted. You don't have to get all the way to the most positive thought in the world, just a little bit down the road. Or as Abraham would say, you've got to turn a little downstream. When you have pivoted, you'll get ideas on how to solve the problem. Just something will pop in your head and say, oh, I could do this, or I could do that. Including I could forget this right now, just let it solve itself. And that's another thing that happens, is the problems very often literally solve themselves. Once you've pulled the energy out of them, they just seem to work themselves out. Or the situation says, well, this is not so bad. It's acceptable. I just got upset because of my old thoughts, so I just choose not to be upset about this. I can live with this. We're always in a situation. We have our desire, we're looking at that, and we feel happy when we think about what we'd like to have. But then, of course, those negative thoughts come in and we get upset, and we look at that television set. So you got the choice. Which one are you going to look at, what you want or what's wrong out there? But don't I have to solve what's out there? No. 99.9% of the time, you don't have to do anything about that out there. And if you'll just relax a little bit and get into a better mood, you'll see an instant, easy way to handle it, or it will be handled. So our job is to focus on what we want. Just if we had a little clicker and we could click our direction and look at what we want, and as we do, we change the way we feel. As we start to focus on what we want, our feelings get better. And as we do, the problem dissolves or solves itself. Literally. Sounds too easy. Well, this is very, very simple, but it's very, very hard. It's harder than going on a diet, because you're going on a diet of thinking. You are going to change your thinking. You're going to eat totally different thought foods. Isn't that interesting? If you would say to every potential disaster, every potential thing that's wrong in your life, everything that's confronting you, if you would just make this one statement, isn't that interesting? Would you say that together with me?
Isn't that interesting?
I fell down in my garage and hurt both of my knees.
Isn't that interesting?
That actually happened just the other day. Think of what you could say about, isn't that interesting? And look at everything in your life. In fact, not just the bad stuff. Look at the good stuff. You get some wonderful news. Before you get all elated by it, take a second and just say, isn't that interesting? And then get elated. Because you've decided, I really want to feel this. This is good. I like this. I would even say to you, you can feel bad if you choose to. Once in a while, it's a good idea. Just blow off some steam. But do it consciously. First, freeze frame. Get yourself into a place where you say, I've got a choice. I could blow off steam or I can go do something else. I'm going to take 4 minutes to blow off steam. And just go. And when your 4 minutes is up, stop. Okay, been there, done that, and move on. You don't have to be a goody two-shoes all the time. You can get upset if you want to, but do it consciously. Don't let your ego run your life. Attachment. We are attached to so many things, and they're, of course, what bring the resentment. When we think we're supposed to get something and we don't get it, we feel terrible. Someone comes up to you and says, I know it's your birthday next week, and I've got this wonderful gift. I'm going to give you a $200 gift certificate to a very nice hotel, and you can spend a weekend there and have a great time. And you think, oh, isn't it wonderful? And they come to your birthday party, and you're waiting for it, and they give you their little card, and you open it up, and it's a $100 gift certificate. How do you feel? Yeah, let down. However, if they had said nothing and gave you the same $100 gift certificate, you say, this is great. You see, it's all the way we are context. We're attached to something. And when we attach to something, then if it doesn't work out the way we think it ought to, then we're disappointed and upset. It's the older we get, the more we become attached. That's what most people think. But I've always wondered if it's this, if it's our attachment that's making us older. Maybe our being attached to things is what is causing us to age. And you know, you only age in time-space, and we're only attached to things in time-space. So what if we would give that up? Would we stay younger? It's an interesting thing. There's some people called centenarians. And there are folks who've lived to be 100 years or older. And I saw something on, I don't know, 60 Minutes or one of those programs where they were talking to these people. And there was one woman who was remarkable. She had worked for 35 years as the ticket seller in a movie theater. 35 years in one job. And she loved it. She got to talk to the people. She just had a great time. And then they closed the theater down. She's 95 years old. Did she get upset? Angry? No. She walked across the street and got a job in the museum as a docent. And at 105, she was still working there, getting to meet people and having a good time. She loved the theater job. She thought it was great, but she wasn't attached to it. What we attach to are like anchors. Can you imagine that you have gone on a treasure hunt and you've come to this deserted island and you looked and looked and you had a map and you found this huge box of treasure. And you were just elated and you dragged it to the beach and you lifted it up into your little boat to take it out to your yacht and you're rowing out and all of a sudden your little boat springs a leak and the water's coming in fast and it's beginning to sink. And you grab hold of the treasure box and the boat goes down, the treasure box goes down and you're holding on, you're going down, you can see the top of the water as you go down farther and farther and farther. What's the solution? Let go of the box. Just what it has a treasure in. Won't you be upset if you drowned and found out it was really lead bars? Folks, it's all lead bars. We're holding on to things that don't matter. Literally don't matter. Let's take this statement. So-and-so did. Can you think of something in your own mind to put so-and-so did whatever it was? That was bad. That was nasty to you. Got that? So-and-so did whatever it was. Okay? Think of another one. Think of still another one that so-and-so did to you. Let's take care of it. So what? So what? Isn't that interesting? Who cares what they did? You see, the wounded ego would rather be angry than happy, be a victim than happy, be proud than happy, be right than happy, be approved of than happy, gripe than happy, gossip than happy, blame than happy, find fault than happy, judge than be happy, complain than be happy, justify than be happy, criticize than be happy. Your soul needs none of that. And how can you tell when you're operating from soul? Well, you ain't doing any of those ego things. And when you catch yourself in those things, what do? You say, isn't that interesting? And you start your pivoting process. If you could do something, put on a bracelet or do something that would cause you for 3 weeks to do this pivoting exercise, to say, I'm going to be ready for when one of these things come up, and I'm going to practice pivoting. If you would do this on a regular basis, even if you miss, we know you're going to miss sometime, that's okay. You just keep trying, you just keep doing it. If you miss, what do you say? Isn't that interesting? You don't criticize yourself. But if you would do this for 3 weeks, your life will change totally and completely. Now, this is not hard to do, But it's not easy because it's catching yourself. Catching yourself. Eckhart Tolle says that this ego's tendency to grab hold of things and start to run with them never quits. No matter how far you go down this track, no matter how, quote, enlightened you are, it's always there. And I know that to be true. In my own life, I dealt with rage, anger. My father had a deep sense of rage, and I witnessed that. And then as a young man, I did with fist fights and did all sorts of things that I shouldn't have been doing. I mean, even as a 30 and 35-year-old, not as a 20-year-old. I realized that in business, that wasn't going to work. So I started working on my anger with a game. And the game was basically this. He who gets mad loses, and I hated to lose. So I would, no matter what the other person was doing or saying or what kind of tricks they pulled, I was going to win by not getting angry. And that was the way to assuage the anger, but it wasn't the answer. And it took me a number of years to really get that rage under control. If I had had the tools that we're giving you in this class, it would have taken me nothing like that. But it still would have taken some work on being committed to the idea that I am not going to let my anger, my rage, my upset, my depression, or anything else, I'm not going to let that own me. I'm going to make different choices. And yet, every one of you can do that if you would. And if you would, you'll see this marvelous change in your life. Constant pivoting will supplant the ego's addictions. It will eventually get it to the point where no matter what happens, you can get through it in a matter of seconds, let alone minutes or days, as it used to take me. There was an Indian brave who was a young man who was dealing with a lot of anger. And he went to the medicine man and said, I have this struggle in me. It's like there were two dogs in me and they're fighting all the time. One is for peace and one is for war. And he said, I want to know which one will win. The medicine man wisely said, the one you feed. So are you going to feed your anger or are you going to feed your love and your kindness? That's a choice. That's a choice that you can make if you choose to. There was a young boy, probably 6 or 7 years old, whose father was a minister. And one of the things that ministers have to do is write their Sunday lessons or sermons, and that takes a lot of concentration. So this minister decided to give his son a puzzle to put together to keep him busy because his wife was out and he was minding the kids. So he gave him this puzzle, and it was a puzzle of the whole world. He said, I want you to put the world together. Figuring this would take the kid hours. In about 5 minutes, the kid came in and said, Dad, I've got it done. And he came out and looked, and he said, my goodness, you got every piece in the right place. How'd you do that? He said, it was very easy. If you turn the puzzle over, there's a picture of a man. And when you put the man together, the world goes together. And when you put yourself together, your world comes together. That is the heritage that you have from Spirit. You were given that gift if you were willing to choose it and use it. I thank you all, and isn't that interesting?
A bird is singing, chirping merrily. Though I've been crying, the song is calling me. Lift my mind, bird, with your lovely melody. With your sweet spirit, I know I can be free. I choose to pivot from this pain, toss away the ball and chain, twist my body and my brain in new directions. I choose to pivot from what's wrong, turn something weak to something strong, with joy to last my whole life long, starting now. A breeze is blowing gently against my skin, helping me realize the darkness I've been in. Open my eyes, breeze, I want to see again. I'm ready to feel good, let the happiness begin. I choose to pivot from my tears, dance away my dreary fears, spin about and switch my gears toward new connections. I choose to pivot from no to yes, turn thought from failure to success, swivel around and feel the blessings growing now. Anything can happen in this world that I create. Instead of struggling, I can reverse the hands of fate. Every moment is a chance to celebrate and to be willing for life to turn out great. I choose to pivot from this pain, toss away the ball and chain, twist my body and my brain in new directions. I choose to pivot from what's wrong, turn something weak to something strong, with joy to last my whole life long, starting now. I'm ready to feel good, let the blessings grow right now, with joy to last my whole life long, starting